Hey there, welcome to episode 181 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some brand new ReAction figures. Now, I feel like I'm talking about ReAction figures a lot lately, and I have been getting a lot of these figures. Not only is it a collection that I've really taken to in the last few years, like I'm really enjoying collecting them, but they're also putting out a lot of figures, so there's a lot for me to keep up with. So, I'm sure you're familiar with ReAction figures by now. It's these kind of figures here. They're little, like 3 3/4 inch figures, the style of the old like Kenner Star Wars figures. They have 5 points of articulation, meaning they move at their arms go just straight out like that, their legs go out like that, and their heads turn side to side. Very simple, very basic figures. A couple of years ago, Funko and then Super 7 started this line called ReAction figures, so it's all these modern figures done in that classic style. So yeah, I've been buying a whole bunch of them. Some of them I just get like random one-offs, like for movies, like say Scarface or the Boondock Saints. I've got, just 1 or 2 little characters from those movies. But lately they've really been getting into these big brands that I like to collect, for like Transformers, which is what I've got pinned up on the wall here. And now they're doing G.I. Joe, and they're doing Ninja Turtles. So all these brands that I really like, and I end up buying like a lot of figures. So I've got a few different ones I want to talk about in today's video. So first up, we're going to cover the newest wave of Ninja Turtle figures. Now there were 4 figures in this new wave. I only got 3 of them. It's hard for me to say why exactly, because I like all 4 of these characters. It's just, I don't know, for whatever reason. And I've showed you these figures already in a prior video. I did an unboxing where I got a new box of stuff in from Big Bad Toy Store, and I pulled everything out of the box and I showed you what I got. Except I decided not to open every figure in that video. I kind of wanted to break it up and focus the videos into a little bit more, categories. So I did a video where I showed you the Marvel Legends and then the Transformers and what have you. So with these Ninja Turtle figures, I've got Slash. So here you see him in the package still. I've had him for a couple of weeks now in the package waiting to do this video so I could open him up. And there's also Mutagen Man. So he looks really great in the package. And lastly, Fillet. So again, really great in the package. I love these vintage style cards with the unique character artwork. They've got even like a little file card in the top corner there, which is great. So you see here for this wave, which is wave 4, I believe it is, yeah. So we've got Fillet / Mutagen Man, but there's also, I know it's coming across a little blurry there, but there's Mondo Gecko. So that's the skateboarding lizard. And yeah, it's kind of hard to say why I didn't get him, but I think it's because I actually bought the Ultimates version of Mondo Gecko, and I got him not too long ago. And that was a figure that I paid like 75 bucks for. And when I got him, he felt a little undersized for the Ultimates line. I don't want to say I was disappointed with him, but like I felt like, okay, you know what? This kind of scratches my Mondo Gecko itch. I paid a lot of money for this figure. I think I'm good for a while, and I didn't really feel the need to buy another one. Now in this case, Slash and Fillet, they both have Ultimates figures coming out soon. So the Ultimates figures are the larger, like 7-inch figures with lots of articulation, lots of accessories. I actually have the Ultimate Fillet on pre-order, and I've been really debating on picking up the Slash. I've been kind of wanting to do so. But now that I see these figures and just how big and detailed these are, because ReAction figures are usually known for being very simple and not being very detailed, I kind of think I might even cancel my pre-order for the Ultimate Fillet and not even bother ordering the Slash based on the strength of these figures. Like I think this might satisfy that itch for Fillet. So kind of the reverse of Mondo Gecko. Got the Ultimates, passed on the ReAction. In this case here, got the ReActions, might be able to pass on the Ultimates. So I've showed you those guys in the package before. Now the other things I want to show you, I talked about in my last ReAction figure video how Super 7 had a warehouse sale. They put out this announcement saying that all these previously sold out figures, they cleaned out their warehouse and they found some old boxes of stuff. And so things were available in limited numbers on their website. And there wasn't a whole lot on there that excited me, but there was one figure that I knew I really wanted to get, and that is this Robotech figure. Now, if you're not familiar with Robotech, In Japan, it was an animated series called Macross. Then it was imported over to North America and redubbed, given the name Robotech. And there was human characters, and they flew these mechas. So these like robots that transformed into jets. And Roy Filker is the guy that piloted this jet here with the black and yellow deco and the skull and crossbones logo on it. So I was a big fan of Robotech. I loved that cartoon. I still do. But I mostly love the human characters. So this line actually came out several years ago. And as you can see on the back of the package, all they did was like the mechs, like the various vehicles. And I kind of wasn't that excited about those. I thought, you know what, maybe I'll buy one or two. But I think I'm going to wait and hope they do human characters. So I only bought one at the time, which I bought the Zentradi Battle Pod here. And then sometime later I bought the SDF one because I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And then later I bought Rick Hunter's Veritek Fighter. And then I was like, well, now I've got those three. My local comic shop still had some figures laying around, so I ordered the last two. And then I realized, well, now I have the whole wave except for Roy Filker's Veritek, which may very well be the coolest one of the line. And I did check eBay considering buying this guy. And it's not like he was crazy expensive on the secondary market. Like this figure would have been, you know, 18 bucks US brand new, which is about 25 bucks Canadian. And I could find him online for pretty close to that price, 25, 30 Canadian. But then the shipping on top of it always killed it for me. Like it would price this guy out at like 50 or 60 bucks, and I couldn't justify it. So when Super 7 said they had one available, or they had a few available, I thought, you know what, I can definitely find some other things on Super 7's website to lump together with this. So it was great to actually find this at just the straight retail price, you know, 18 bucks American. And I could kind of lower the shipping by adding some extra stuff to the order. So I got him, and then I got some of Super 7. They have an original line of characters called The Worst. The premise behind The Worst is that it's a line of just supervillains that Super 7 has made up. And this was another line I kind of slept on for a while because I'm like, I don't have any attachment to these characters, but they look cool. There's like a pirate skeleton guy. There's like a biker werewolf. There's a guy that's like a kind of like a Nazi with a brain in a jar. Like just all these kind of cool things. And so after they put out a couple of waves of these figures, I finally caved and I've gotten a few. And I've reviewed them in the past. Anyway, some of those characters from the first couple waves, they've been sold out for a couple of years. Anyway, some of them were available at the warehouse sale. So, the guy with the brain in the jar that I mentioned, which is Cortex Commander, I already have him 2 times over, I think, in other colors. But this is one of the earlier colors that was hard to get now. So this is him in a white suit with the brain in the jar. So there's still him. He's still available in a couple of other colors. Like you see on the back of the package, they're advertising him in a brown suit, which I still don't have. I think that was maybe the original or the second version of Cortex Commander to come out. Now the frustrating thing is, this guy is probably my favorite character from The Worst. So after I got my first version of him, I'm like, I really kind of like this guy. So then I bought a second one. And then I was kind of kicking myself for not buying the earlier versions because they are kind of expensive on the secondary market now. Anyway, so with this warehouse sale came along, and I thought, okay, cool, I can get this one. And then they had another one available that has a black suit and a red, like instead of a clear container, it was like a red glass container on the top of him. And I thought he looked pretty cool, so I ordered him as well. And I'm not sure if I'm going to get that or not, because this order with the Robotech figures and the Worst figures, I ordered it. Super 7 usually mails stuff out really quick, but for whatever reason, this one, I wasn't getting any sort of shipping notification. I contacted them. I said, is there a problem with my shipment? They said, nope, it's in the queue. It's going to be shipped out. And then another week went by. I contacted them again. They said, no, it's in the queue. And then I got a notification that said, 4 of your 5 figures have shipped. And so the one in the black suit and the red jar, that one got held off. And so a couple weeks went by. This one finally showed up in the mail last week. And I contacted them again. I'm like, so what's going on with my other figure? Are you guys going to send it out, or am I going to get a refund? And the guy said, we're just waiting for it to come in from the warehouse. Like, very vague. I don't know what that means. Like, I get it. If they oversold that particular item, fair enough. But then just give me a refund. I don't know if they're going to find one for me somewhere. I don't know. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll have another version of Cortex Commander in a future video. Anyway, my second favorite worst character is Captain Deadstar, and this is the skeleton pirate guy I mentioned. So this is another character that I already have in 2 different color variations, but this was an opportunity for me to get one of the older variations. So this is him in a brown suit. So again, you can see on the back there, they advertise him in like a black and gray outfit. I still don't have that one. But anyway, and so there's lots of different characters there. Like you see here, they have, what is it, like 14 or 12 different characters advertised there. And most of them I'm not interested in. I don't have any versions of this guy or this guy or this guy or this guy. But when I find one I like, I kind of like getting them in all the various colors that are available to me. That's just kind of the weird collector I am. Rather than get all these, you know, different characters, I just want to get the same character over in all these different colors. So there you go. There's Captain Deadstar in brown. And I am going to pop all these figures open, so we'll take a look at them outside of the packaging shortly. And lastly, this is Black Falcon. So this is another skeleton guy, but he's more of like a barbarian or a knight. So he looks like somebody that like Conan might fight, something out of like Dungeons and Dragons. So I thought this guy's pretty cool. I have one of these guys in an all black color scheme, and the all black one is kind of hard to make out any of the detail. So I thought I might as well grab this version here. It's definitely, you know, a little easier to see all the detail in him, and I think he's pretty cool as well. So there you go. So those 4 figures, the 3 worst guys and the Robotech one, that's what I got from the warehouse sale, plus the additional Cortex Commander if he ever shows up. Anyway, today I just had another shipment of stuff show up. So it seems like every time I buy something from Super 7 and say, okay, good, I'm not going to deal with Super 7 again for a little while because I sometimes find their shipping a little expensive or whatever. As soon as I deal with them, then they go ahead and they put something new up on their website. And I'm like, damn it, I got to buy something again. So this is what's happened to me. As soon as I ordered that one, they made some new stuff. So they put out a brand new line of worst figures. So you can see here on the back of this packaging, they're advertising some of their older characters there. You see Captain Deadstar, Cortex Commander. And then up top, they show these 5 new characters, and they give it a little origin story. So this here is the X series of robots. So they've got X1, X2, X3, X4, and X5. And so these are all new, uniquely designed characters. And some, you know, they're all pretty similar in design, which I guess makes sense. Like, for one, a design standpoint, they're able to reuse parts, so it saves them some money. But also just from a story standpoint, if this is supposed to be a robot that evolves a little bit over time as they, you know, improve him, it would make sense that the parts stay the same from one series to the next. Anyway, so I got the X1, also known as the Nameless. And this guy I thought was pretty cool. He kind of looks like a weird combination of like some sort of African soldier with his, this like cloth dashiki or whatever he's wearing, and then this spear. But then he also looks like something that might have been designed by Jack Kirby. He's got a kind of a celestial design on his face and everything. So I thought he was pretty cool. So I went with him. And the other one I picked up is X3, the Enigma. So I know it's a little hard to tell here, but the top of his head, it's a clear dome, kind of like Cortex Commander. So instead of a brain inside there, you get all these little gadgets and stuff. So it's a little hard to tell because he's in front of this black background on his card. But once I open him up, hopefully it'll be a little easier to see all the mechanics inside of his head. So there you go. A couple of more worst characters. And the last set I got that arrived today with those 2 figures is the new series of Transformer ReAction figures, which I love. That's why I've got all these guys. I know you can only see a couple of them here, but they go up about 4 rows deep. I'm a big fan of the Transformer ones. I think they look fantastic as ReAction figures. And again, this is another impressive line. So here is Arcee. So she is essentially the first female Transformer. She appeared in the animated movie back in the day. So very nice figure for her. Nice artwork. And then we've got Prowl. So this is a very popular G1 character from the 80s. So this is the Autobot that transforms into a cop car. Of course, these figures do not transform, which I'm sure is a deal breaker for many Transformer fans. But for me, I don't really care. I just like that these guys look like the characters from the cartoon. And yeah, so he looks pretty great. But these next two I'm really excited about. So this here is Reflector. So this is the Decepticon that turns into a camera. Now this was a character that was in a lot of the early episodes of the cartoon, but there was no toy of him that was like easily available, especially not in these cartoon colors. So this purple and green look. So yeah, you always saw this guy in the background of the show, but you couldn't get a toy of him. I actually got an actual Transformer toy of him. I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago now. Maybe even longer now that I think about it. 4 years ago already? Jeez. But anyway, he was a really cool figure. I was really excited to get that figure. And I think he looks really great as a ReAction figure as well. Just a nice, simple, blocky robot. And I love it. And I'm actually tempted to buy this figure 2 times over, just so I can have all 3 of them, because in the cartoon there was always 3 basically identical versions of Reflector, and then they merged together to transform into a camera. So very cool. And then this last one is so you can see with all these Transformers, they're all in their robot modes. Obviously, you wouldn't want a ReAction figure of just a car. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And in one of the prior waves, they did Grimlock, and he is one of the Dinobots. You know, he's a robot that transforms into a dinosaur. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting about the Dinobots from the cartoon series is, you know, very rarely did you see Optimus Prime hanging out as a truck or Bumblebee as a car. They just transformed into a vehicle to get from point A to point B. And then when they were all like standing around planning and talking, you know, they were in robot mode. But the Dinobots would often stand around and converse as dinosaurs. So Grimlock is one of those characters that when you buy a Grimlock Transformer, you don't know, like, do I leave him as a robot on my shelf or do I put him in as a dinosaur? Because both modes are equally iconic, and arguably his dinosaur mode is perhaps even the more iconic look. So Super 7 did put out a robot version of Grimlock a while ago. I've got him up on my shelf, and I'll do a side-by-side comparison. But with this wave, they put out Dinosaur Grimlock, and this guy's awesome. Like, he's really big. Like I talked about how with the Ninja Turtle ones, the packaging on Fillet is so large, like the bubble is so much bigger than you're used to seeing on a standard like 3/4 inch figure, because it's such a thick, wide figure. But even look at him compared to the Grimlock. Like this bubble on the blister card for Grimlock is huge because he's a wide character. He's got the big tail. Just very cool. I'm really excited about this guy. I'm hoping that we get all the Dinobots in both forms. So far we've only got Grimlock in robot mode and now Dino mode. But yeah, it would be a real shame if they give us the other Dinobots either only as robots or only as dinosaurs. They got to give us both. That's what I'm hoping to see anyway. So there you go. So there's all my new ReAction figures on their cards. Now I'm going to open all these guys up and we'll take a look at them outside of the packaging. Okay, so here are all my new ReAction figures outside of the packaging. So let's take a closer look at them. So first, we'll grab Fillet. So now you can see all the details in there. And he's just a really great figure. I love the flippers. He's got the gun accessory. There's not really much point to go over the articulation with all these figures because, as I explained earlier, their arms go forward, back, their heads turn side to side, and their legs go forward and backwards a little bit. And that should be the same for pretty much all these figures. That's kind of the whole point of these figures, is to have that aesthetic of the old figures of the 70s and 80s. But yeah, you can see how large he is. Like if I bring out one of the more standard figures from the line, so here's like a Ninja Turtle. And even the Ninja Turtles are already kind of bulky for the ReAction figure line. But you can see here that Ray is quite a bit larger, especially with those wings. So yeah, pretty cool. Now he also did have a couple of additional accessories, which is kind of odd. Most ReAction figures come with, you know, at most one accessory. But he comes with his little sidekick guy, who's, you know, there's some nice detail sculpted in him. Probably about on par with the vintage toy. And like the vintage toy, there's no color on this guy. And he also has this little starfish guy. I don't know if you can see all the detail in him, but I think his name is Starface. And he looks like an angry little starfish. So, not only does he have the gun, but he's got the 2 extra little guys. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, really nice figure. This is definitely making me think that I probably don't need to order the Ultimates version. That looks to be a really nice figure, but it's $75 a pop. I think this might, scratch my itch for a Ray Fillet. Now, one thing I guess I should mention about Ray, you might have noticed to get him to stand up, I do have to kind of get him to lean forward a little bit because he is kind of, if you're trying to stand him up straight, just his feet don't sit flat and his back is a little heavy, so you do have to kind of lean him forward. So that's a little unfortunate. Next up we have Mutagen Man. So he looks great with that clear dome that you can see right through. You can see his brain and his little skull and his eyeballs. You can see all his guts floating around in there. And he's got his gun accessory. Now with Mutagen Man, I do have the Ultimates version that I got last year. So if you just want to do a comparison, as far as detail goes, they're pretty close. You would kind of expect the Ultimates figures to blow these simple little figures out of the water, but the detail is pretty comparable, I would say, for these guys. Like, there's not a whole lot that you're missing with this little guy. Sure, you're missing some of the extra articulation, and this guy came with more accessories, like extra hands and little doodads. But yeah, as far as, like, if you really just want a cool Mutagen Man in your collection, I think you could probably settle on this guy, and you don't really have to feel like you're missing out on all that much. So yeah, very cool. Like this guy a lot. So next we'll take a look at Slash. So this is one of the evil turtle figures. Toka being the other one, I think. So yeah, he's pretty cool. Although I'll be honest, this guy I'm not as confident about not needing the Ultimates figure when I look at this guy. Because he's cool, but I think the Ultimates one is quite a bit cooler. Something about this face doesn't really work for me. And it's not that far off from the face on the Ultimates figure, but it's just, I don't know, maybe at this scale, this mouth just looks a little too crazy to me. Now this is supposed to be based off of the vintage, like the 80s figure of Slash. And, I guess it's pretty close, but yeah, it's just this smile. It reminds me of one of the meanies from the Beatles' Yellow Submarine movie. I know that's maybe a little bit of an obscure reference, but with that big, crazy, toothy smile, that's what I'm seeing here. Now for accessories, he's got this pink mace, and it fits in his hand okay. He also is a little, like, heavy in the back, so if you stand him up completely straight, he doesn't stand. You kind of have to tilt his legs forward just ever so slightly to get him to stand. He also has this little jagged dagger, which I'm pretty sure is true to the vintage figure as well. Now, just as far as the look goes, I do have two Slash figures from NECA that came out in recent years, and you'll see how different the different looks are for him. This is Slash as he appeared in the 80s cartoon, and that's a very true representation. It's a great figure of that look, but it was never my favorite look for the character. And here's NECA's version of Slash from the video games. And that's probably my preferred look of the three. So yeah, this one's based on the vintage toy from Playmates. And yeah, it's cool. But this is probably my least favorite of the three turtles that I picked up today. Now before we move on to the worst figures, I just quickly want to mention about this Robotech figure again. This is the one figure that I just showed you in the packaging that I have not yet opened. And that's because, like when I first started collecting ReAction figures, I kept them all sealed on the card. Nowadays, when I buy them, I tend to open them. But with Robotech, this is one of those lines where I have all the other figures, and I've kept them all carded so far. So if I open this guy up, then I feel I'm going to have to go open up all my other ones. And I might do that, but for now, I haven't made that call. So I'm going to just keep him on the card, and I might just pin this to the wall as is. I have a little Robotech section in one of the corners of my room here, and so that's where he might stay. But this is a really awesome figure, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of dying to open him up and just fiddle around with him a little bit. But at least for now, I'm not going to open him. And before we move on to the other ones, I actually shot that intro to this video a couple of days ago, and it took me a couple of days to get back into my little man cave here to shoot the rest of the video. In the meantime, I bought another ReAction figure. I'm also not sure if I'm going to open this one. So this is the Dragonzord from Power Rangers. And this is an oversized ReAction figure. Like if you see the card, like just compared to one of the standard figures, he's quite a bit taller. This is more in line with, say, the... they did release one of the combiners in the Transformers line. They released Devastator, so he was about this tall as well. So, you know, it's pretty detailed, like, you know, for a ReAction figure. And this guy, he was $22.99. I actually found this guy at a local comic book shop called Cape and Cowl, and they had some really good prices on their ReAction figures. Most of the standard guys were $16.99 Canadian, which is a really good price because I usually end up paying $24.99 for them here. So the fact that I found this guy for even less than what I would normally pay for a standard figure, pretty great. So thank you, Cape and Cowl, for that. And I will just say, I'm not a fan of Power Rangers. It was kind of after my time. But if you've been watching my videos for a long time, one of my best friends and one of my kind of best toy collecting friends for sure was my friend Andrew. He passed away right at the start of COVID. Not COVID related. But yeah, so it's been just 2 years now, just over 2 years. So 2 years ago in March, actually, that he passed away. And he loved Power Rangers, and he loved the Dragonzord. And I have a little shelf in my collection kind of dedicated to Andrew, where I have a framed picture of him, and I have his Dragonzord from his personal collection, as well as some other toys from his collection that his family gifted to me after he passed. So when I saw this thing there, I thought, you know what, this might look really nice to just add to my Andrew display, because this is something that I know he definitely would have bought for himself if he was still with us. So anyway, this one's for Andrew. So moving on to the worst figures, this here is Cortex Commander. So you see his little brain on the brain stem. It's in this clear jar. Then he's got all his badges and medals there. So very cool. He's got one little accessory, which is this little pistol here, which has got some sculpted detail, but it's kind of hard to make out with it's all in black. Anyway, I like this guy a lot. The helmet does pop off, and I don't know if you can see it here, but it's held in place by a clear circular sticker. And I think I'm going to leave that in place because I want the helmet to stay on. As I mentioned earlier, I have Cortex Commander in a couple of other colors. And I took the tape off of those helmets, so you can lift this off. Actually, I replaced it on that one. So he's got it on. But this other one, I think I'm missing the tape completely. And because of that, the helmet comes off really easily. And it doesn't really click into place all that well. So for that reason, I think I'm going to just leave the sticker on those guys there. So yeah, these are my 3 different Cortex Commanders now. So he's available in, I think, probably at least 3 or 4 other color variations. And I think this is a really fun figure. And I would totally collect this guy in as many colors as they put him out in. One thing that's kind of a bummer is the fact that I have these 3 and they're all kind of the very light colors. Like these are basically 2 variations of a white suit. And this one being the glow-in-the-dark version, it's a very light blue. So they're kind of similar. The other colors that I don't have are a black suit, a dark gray suit, a brown suit. I really wish I had one of those darker suits just to kind of break up the look of these guys, because I think this figure looks really sharp in the darker colors. But out of the 3 variations I have, I think I like this one more than the gold one. There's something about the glow-in-the-dark that's really cool, so I still really like that one. Plus, he's got that bright pink brain, which I think probably looks the best. But yeah, this is a really fun figure. I really like this line from Super 7. Now here is Captain Deadstar. So again, he's got some great detail there. The little skeleton face. It's a very simple skeleton face. It almost looks like a Mexican sugar skull or something. And he's got the one little gold tooth. And then he's got the sculpted skull and crossbones on his hat there. Lots of nice little sculpted detail throughout. He's got this kind of robotic peg leg. He's got the flaming sword accessory, which is cast in like a translucent orange. And yeah, just some really nice sculpting here. And then he's got this little soft vinyl cape, which is what you're used to seeing on the old Star Wars figures. Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, they had capes made out of this like soft vinyl. So yeah, that's really cool. So I like this guy a lot. And here you see him with my other Captain Deadstars. So again, I think this one probably trumps this one in red. But I do love this glow-in-the-dark color. I think this really works great on a lot of the figures here. So this might still be my favorite Captain Deadstar. But yeah, he looks really good in brown too. I know it might be kind of odd, but brown is my favorite color. So anyway, yeah, a really sharp looking figure. I like this guy a lot too. So here's another worst figure. This is Black Falcon. This is another skeleton guy. I do love my skeleton warriors here. So I know with the bright lights it's kind of hard to make out the detail in his face, but he's got some nice nice sculpted detail there in the teeth, and then the big old eye sockets, and then just really cool armor with the skulls on his knees there, spikes all over the place, different textures, so it looks like maybe some chainmail here, some padding throughout here. Very cool. He does have one sword accessory which fits way too loosely in his hand. Like, he doesn't really have any solid grip on that. At least it doesn't fall right out of his hand, but it feels like it could any second there. And the other hand has got more of an open palm, so you can't move it to the other hand. But yeah, he looks great, and I think these colors look really good. I do have one other Black Falcon figure, all in black. And yeah, this one I think is definitely superior to this one here, because this one I just found, you don't really see any of that sculpted detail. You know, especially from a distance, he just looks like kind of a black blob. So this figure here really brings out some of those details that, you know, you missed earlier. And yeah, just really fun. I like this guy. Now here is X1 up close. And so yeah, he's got a very cool design. As I mentioned, I see Jack Kirby's design when I see this. You know, with the X and the 6 eyes there, the antenna. He's got some gadgetry in the back there. Looks like a little on and off switch on the back of his head. You know, just very cool. And a weird mix of design, because he's got this axe, he's a robot, and yeah, he's got this like African blanket draped over him. And that you can undo. I actually did take it off, or I was going to take it off. You just poke these tabs out through there. And I got one back in. I had a hell of a time trying to get the other tab in there. I'll have to do it later. I just got kind of sick of wrestling with it, but I wanted you to be able to see some of the detail underneath there. So he's got more tubing and more panels and more buttons. So that design kind of carries through underneath the blanket there. The front looks to be pretty plain, just a big orange X across the front, I think. And yeah, I don't think it's removable because these guys' heads don't come off, at least not easily. I'd be scared to break it if I popped his head off. So even once I undid the 2 little tabs, I was like, oh yeah, there's no way to get this off of his head. So yeah, there's no point. If you get this figure, you might as well leave those things done up. But yeah, a fun design for this figure. Very interesting character. Now this here is X3. Now he's pretty cool. I like all his ammo pouches and stuff that he's got. This guy definitely feels like he's much more of an upgrade, maybe a much more deadly assassin. You know, the first guy just comes with a spear, but this guy's got a gigantic gun with all kinds of ammo on him. The design's a little simpler. He's still got the panel and some buttons and stuff on the back here, but he's got even more ammo pouches there as well. You can see the carryover design in the back here. This looks very similar to what we see on X1's head. But yeah, I am a little disappointed to see that the dome is kind of like black, cloudy glass, so it is hard to make out all the details in there. You can see he has like one robotic eye that kind of stares out, and you can see that quite obviously. But it's hard to make out the details of any of those other little sculpted bits inside of the helmet. The gun is fun, but the gun is actually, I find, too big. Like, if you want to display these guys, you know, sitting on a shelf all lined up together, the gun, you see there, it's longer than his leg. So you're kind of forced to display him with his arm out like that. And that might not work for a lot of people's display if you've got these guys in rows. So even though the big weapon is kind of funny, I kind of wish they made it so he could at least keep his hand at his side. But yeah, I really like the colors of these new worst characters, and I like the little storyline of it being a robot that continues to improve himself. So yeah, very cool. Like these guys. Now here's a closer look at Arcee. So this is the first real prominent female Autobot character. She was introduced in the animated movie in 1986, I want to say. And yeah, for a character that got a lot of face time in the movie, like, she was featured very heavily, just as much as the other new characters like Hot Rod and Ultra Magnus, and those characters all became, you know, very popular toys. But poor Arcee, she never got a toy in the vintage line. And I guess it's just because she was a female character and they didn't think boys would buy her. So that's been a glaring hole in people's collections for a very long time. Now, in the 2000s, I finally was able to get an Arcee figure, so this is the Arcee that I display in my collection. There have been a couple other versions of her since, so, you know, fans have finally had an opportunity a couple of times over to add an Arcee to their Transformers collection, but the thing I love about these ReAction figures is how you really get cartoon-accurate versions of these characters for the first time. Because as great as I think this figure is, and I think it captures, like, the look of the head with kind of the Princess Leia, like, buns on the side of the head and everything, it doesn't really look like she did in the movie because she's got all this extra bits hanging off of her. But with these ReAction figures, you don't have any of that extra kibble. You only have what was there in the animated design, and it looks really good. For accessories, she's got one little pistol there. And otherwise, yeah, I think she looks pretty great. The only thing I'm not sure about is I feel like, you know, she's got an all-white face and an all-white head sculpt. I can't remember if that's accurate. It probably is, since that's what Super 7 did here. But I'm so used to looking at this figure in my collection with the pink face and the white head that that's kind of how I remember her now. So I don't know which is more accurate. Probably this one. But if by chance she should have a little bit more color in her face, then I wish they gave her more color in her face. So next up is Prowl the Autobot Cop. And this is one of those classic G1 characters. If you're even a casual Transformers fan, you should recognize Prowl. You know, he's one of the earliest toys. He was featured pretty heavily in the cartoons and the comic books. He was never really a favorite of mine. I didn't dislike Prowl, but you know, he was one of many Autobot cars, and some of the other guys just had a little bit more fun personalities, and they turned into, you know, race cars instead of a cop car. And so yeah, Prowl was always okay, but he was always just kind of a middle of the pack Autobot for me. So I'm glad we got him, but he's not a character I'm super thrilled about. The Prowl that I have displayed in my Transformers collection right now is this one here, and this one is several years old. It probably came out, I want to say, around 2006, 2007, and they've made many Prowls since that, so I could have upgraded it. But that's the thing. I don't feel the need to rebuy every one of these characters every time they upgrade them. This one here, I thought it captured the vintage look good enough. And yeah, when I pulled him out for these, I saw he's a little dirty because he's been sitting on my shelf for a long time. So he needs a little bit of a cleaning. But so yeah, that just gives you an idea of how long he's been sitting out in my collection. He's been representing Prowl for a very long time. And he still, to me, does the job just fine. I think he's a nice looking figure. And you can see, again, how well this ReAction figure, since it captures the look of the animation, which is what I'm always looking for. This figure, you know, he's got a lot of the same aesthetics, and he captures it pretty well also. So yeah, pretty cool figure. I'm always happy to add some of these new Transformers ReAction figures to my collection. It's growing pretty large now. And yeah, I hope they continue to make a bunch more of these guys. So next up is Reflector. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a guy I was really excited about. This is a character I always just liked his design. It's very simple, it's very basic, it's very boxy. You know, he's the perfect type of character to just be, you know, kind of a faceless soldier. And they really kind of took advantage of that in the recent Netflix War for Cybertron computer animated show. There was a lot of characters with Reflector's design. He's called Refractor now, though, I think, just because of some copyright issues. So Reflector, Refractor, whatever you want to call him. But you saw a lot of these guys running around in the group shots in the new Transformers series. And I think he's a solid design to do that. There's some other Transformers that just have too iconic of a look. Like if you colored Optimus Prime, you know, purple and gray and just had him running around the background, you would know, hey, that's Optimus Prime. But with this guy, he seems like he would have a very good generic look for just the regular citizens on Cybertron. But it's so simple that I love it. I think this is a great design. And this was a character that I never had as a kid, and I always kind of felt like I should have had him. So I was able to get a transforming version of him finally in the War for Cybertron series. And I absolutely love this figure. I think it captures the look pretty well. And I think when you see them side by side, you see how close they are. You know, all the little designs, even these little panels on the leg, they match up pretty good. But yeah, as far as the cartoon aesthetic, like this guy just nails it that much more than this guy because it's kind of simplified. And yeah, I just really love it. So super excited about this guy. Okay, so lastly we'll take a look at Grimlock. So here he is outside of the packaging. Looks great. His arms move. His jaw moves. His head does not turn at all. There's no swivels there. And then his legs go forward and backwards a little bit. So even though his design is quite a bit different from other ReAction figures, he does still have 5 points of articulation, which is pretty standard. You know, there's no movement on the tail. That's all really stiff. So yeah, the design is pretty simple. But he looks great. Again, he looks like he just stepped right out of the cartoon, and I absolutely love it. Now, I do have the other Grimlock ReAction figure here. So this is him in his robot mode. So you see the two of them together here. They look pretty good. And you can see how some of the design elements are supposed to carry over. Like you see these different colored panels on his legs. So if he were to transform, these panels would flip back like this and form his back. Here you see the little T-Rex arms on the side, so these panels would fold over. And then when you look at this guy, you see those colored panels, so this would be like basically the equivalent of his legs folded back, and you've got the arms here, so these panels have folded over. So it's really neat to see the two non-transforming figures in the two different modes together, and yet you look at them and you believe that this figure could turn into this figure. It's really cool the way they did that. I like them a lot. Now, since I did it with the other guys, I'll bring out an actual Transformer for comparison. I have a couple of different Grimlocks, but my Transformer shelves have gotten so packed lately that I only keep one of each character on each shelf. So the only Grimlock I had easily available was this one here. So this is a big version of Grimlock, and you can see I have him in robot mode here. That is generally my preferred look. It's always tough to decide if you want to display Grimlock as a robot or as a dinosaur. But in this case, I went with robot. But yeah, so that's Grimlock for you. This might be my best figure here of the day. It's hard to say. These guys, there's so many great little figures here. I'm really loving these ReAction figures. So yeah, I recommend all these guys. But I think if you could only get just one, you should probably grab Grimlock. Okay, so that was my review of my latest ReAction figures from Super 7. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. And please leave me comments below. Any questions, comments, all that stuff. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. So I've got a whole bunch of other videos lined up. My good buddy Miguel just came back from Mexico, and he brought me some fun figures back from Mexico that I'm eager to show you guys. So that might be my next video. But anyway, just come back for whatever it is I do. I promise I'll show you something cool. So I'll see you then. Until then, have a good one. Ciao.